an all-new Dr. Phil.
I'm not gonna feel better till he's dead.
A troubled child.
He has been diagnosed with 18 mental illnesses.
A tormented family.
This is where Steve decided to hold his brother underwater.
Living in fear.
Do you think he could hurt one of his siblings?
And in over their heads.
I just can't imagine my sister treating this child like that.
Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard things. Stand by, Dr. Phil. I'll try to be an emotional compass and point you in the right direction. In 5, 4. I am not giving up on you. Go, Dr. Phil. Thank you very much. Well, today we are talking about a story that had me doing a lot of extra research to try to get down to what's really going on. On one side, parents Alan and Cheryl say their 9-year-old son, Steve, is completely out of control. They say he terrorizes them, has attempted to kill his brother 3 times, and tells his teacher that he wants to blow up his family's home. On the other side, Cheryl's family says that while this little boy does have some questionable behaviors, it's his parents who are the problem. They say the couple never puts their foot down, never give consequences, blame Steve's bad behavior on mental illness, and take no responsibility whatsoever for what's going on. They say this child is getting away with murder. Now, the reason I decided to do this show is because what's at stake here? It's a 9-year-old boy, and there are other children in the home. He's been dragged from psychiatrist to psychiatrist, and his parents say that he is so bad, they've had to check him into 3 mental hospitals in the last year alone. Take a look at their story.
This is where Steve decided to hold his brother underwater and potentially drown him. Having him roam the house is frightening.
On 2 different occasions, Steve has tried to hold a pillow over my younger son's head and suffocate him.
We decided it was time to install cameras into our house so that we can keep an eye on him. It's very hard to look at your boy threatening to kill you.
I'm not gonna feel better till he's dead.
And threatening to kill your husband.
Stab him
With what?
a screwdriver.
Threatening to kill your children. Steve goes from super hyper, running around the house, bouncing off of walls, to being angry, throwing toys. He uses whatever he can get closest to him as a weapon.
What are you doing to him?
Generally, I end up sitting on the couch with the 2 younger ones just to protect them from his antics. My family is suffering. We live a life on eggshells. Everything revolves around Steve. I'm concerned about how life is going to be for all of us.
In his 9 short years, Steve has been on at least 18 different medications.
Steve starts the day with Zoloft for anxiety. He gets what they call a booster. It's dextroamphetamine, 5 milligrams. He gets a 60 milligram Vyvanse, which is a long-acting ADHD medication. At 1:15, he gets 40 milligram Vyvanse, and then around 6:30, he gets Seroquel, 50 milligrams to calm him down. And then at bedtime, he gets 100 milligrams of trazodone to help him sleep.
Well, Cheryl's sister Amy and twin sister Elena have a different story. They say Steve is over-medicated and under-parented. Take a look.
Cheryl and Alan are responsible for a majority of Steve's behaviors. Steve has been on medication since he was 5 years old, before they even realized what was really going on with him. There have been so many doctors that have seen him that have said that nothing's wrong with him.
This could be so different. He's so brilliant. He could be such a wonderful person. I feel like Steve is in a cage and he's got an alarm on his door. I have seen Steve scream at his mom. I've seen him scream at his dad. I've seen him shove his brother, and I blame a lot of it on medication.
My nephew has a lot of issues with anxiety, and he has said he doesn't feel loved. I think my sister and her husband need help in parenting, and they don't feel that it is a parenting problem. Cheryl is a yeller, and she's very proud of her mom voice.
Get up. We're gonna spend the entire afternoon cleaning the house.
Alan has always been a little bit detached.
You didn't just act like a jerk to me and my family.
I feel as if the fix is always to put him on a new medication. I'm worried that the drugs that he's taking, he doesn't need to be on. I'm fearful that he's going to be put into a residential care facility.
When I watch Steve struggle, it just hurts. I feel for that child. I don't see him having a good future.
As a mother, what do you think is going on with your child?
I believe that he has a mental illness. I think there's some form of mental illness within him, and I think that part of it's just learned behavior.
Learned where? How?
Learned at home by, over the years, being able to scream and yell at his parents and say the things that he says to us. I think part of that is he's learned that behavior, and some of that is just who he is.
Well, I think all of us teach people how to treat us.
I mean,
what do you think's going on here?
I think he does have some form of ADHD, and I believe that he struggles with some additional issues that we can't put our fingers on.
Do you believe this child is dangerous?
yes.
Do you think he could hurt or kill one of his siblings?
In the right moment, yes.
And you say you've been in bed at night, opened your eyes, and he's standing there staring at you.
He was standing next to me, and I said, "What are you doing?" And he said he had a bad dream, and I said, "Okay, well, you need to go back to bed." And he went back to bed, and there was an extension rod pull on the floor next to my bed.
Your fear is that it was a weapon. Now, you have an alarm on his room.
We installed the alarm as a result of this.
Yeah.
Right.
And the alarm simply sounds when his door is open.
We're going to take a break. Now, Cheryl has actually written about the fact that she hates her son, Steve. We're going to talk about Cheryl's controversial blog and how her family feels about it when we get back.
Cheryl's blog is a plague over our family.
She would call him that little.
He was being just a total
Nasty words. I hate Cheryl for what she's done to our family.
We were at a soccer game for my younger son, and Steve flipped out. He hit glass, he hit walls, he had a just complete fit. It was that point in which I said to the therapist, "You either drug him or you drug me."
Cheryl created her blog as an outlet, she says, to vent about what is going on at home with her 9-year-old son, Steve. Her sisters, Amy and Elena, hate the blog. Take a look.
Cheryl's blog is a plague over our family, and I don't know why she'd want to do this.
My blog has been a helpful release for me. I needed a place to vent, a place where I could put my thoughts down.
We've read how she really feels about her son.
I finally admitted out loud that I more often than not hate that child. I just hate him much of the time.
She would call him the demon that resides in my child.
My family are embarrassed by me being so vocal and articulate about what's going on in my life.
She would call him that little.
And before you know it, I had a smack fest with my eldest because he was being just a total.
Just nasty words.
Recently, I've taken on quite a bit of haters. I'm a sensitive soul, so I take that to heart.
No matter how many people have begged her, therapists, my parents, she refuses to take the blog down. When Cheryl calls her followers her fans, it makes me feel sick to my stomach because this is a real child with real issues.
I hate Cheryl for what she's done to our family.
Well, let's just get it all on the table here about what's out there. There's another reason why her sisters hate the blog. Now, it might surprise you. Take a look.
Cheryl started a site on her blog to help pay for the treatment for Steve. After the site was put up, Cheryl leased a Cadillac.
Cheryl and Alan have a good life. He makes good money. They live in this big, beautiful house. They drive fancy cars. They have a rental home. And to collect money to help pay for their child's health care is just absurd.
Numerous people have gone on Cheryl's blog and have Google Earthed her home and know that she lives in a 4,000 square foot home and has seen the cars in the driveway. They have felt duped that they put money into this fund to help Steve, when in all reality, she could have funded it on her own.
If it was me, I would sell everything, and I feel like they want to keep their fancy life. I would do anything for that child, and I would not ask strangers to donate.
What do you say about that?
People wanted to donate money to help for the care. The leased Cadillac is paid for by my business. It's not my car.
And y'all are embarrassed by that, right?
Not embarrassed. I feel bad for the people that have donated and now feel as if it wasn't for a true cause.
You guys say you hate this blog. Let's take a look at some of what the blog posts are that Cheryl's family have such an issue with. January 10th of this year. I more often than not hate that child. It's horrible to say, but it's true. I am no longer able to separate him from his actions and words. I just hate him much of the time. November 3rd, when he would ask for a hug, my whole body would tense up. And I have to actually make myself hug him. I didn't even realize I was doing this. February 16th of this year. So I was explaining to him that there won't be candy today. He had his arm around my neck and his other hand on my throat. I flung him to the floor a few times, and he kept coming back for more while I calmly sat on a footstool. I reached around and put my hand flat on the back of his neck and just shoved with all my force. He went face first into the carpet and got hurt. Now, there's an ellipses there where you actually say all my force, which wasn't much because I'd been in a car wreck and I didn't have a lot of strength in that arm, to be completely fair. But you say you pushed him down, his face hit the carpet. What's y'all's problem with all this?
It doesn't make sense to me why you would put these kinds of things about your children on a public forum where other people are reading it. Now they've figured out who you are. And this is going to follow her and Alan and Steve and their whole family for the rest of their lives.
We've got people on our Twitter responding. Fifi Flea says, children deserve privacy, especially when they're struggling. Do more for your family than to expose your son to ridicule. Then Cobra Girl AZ says, I'm disgusted by this blog. Why can't she see how wrong it is and damaging for her son as he gets older? Disconnect her. Well, I'm not going to disconnect her because they're here for a reason. They're here for a purpose. They truly want some help and direction, and I'm going to do my best to get it for them. Now, I do want to take a closer look at some of the home video that Cheryl provided us. She claims that it shows Steve's out-of-control behavior, but I saw some other things that I think we want to talk about as well. We'll be right back.
I believe that Cheryl is being physically aggressive with Steve.
Cheryl and Alan have been struggling to find answers to help their 9-year-old son, Steve, who they believe may suffer from a mental illness. They say he shows no remorse and no empathy for his out-of-control bad behavior. I want to point out, in case you're wondering, you're not going to see the child's face, and that's not the child's actual name. Cheryl's sisters are concerned that she may be crossing the line with how she physically controls Steve. Let's take a look.
I have witnessed Cheryl and Steve physically fighting.
I need to see your body.
I believe that Cheryl is being physically aggressive with Steve. Sometimes she just gets so angry that that's the first thing that comes to her mind. She's gonna go after him. She's gonna stop him.
Okay, now, your thinking is what?
It just breaks my heart to watch that. I mean, I understand he's difficult. I'm sorry. I understand he's difficult. I've seen him angry. I know why. I just can't imagine treating this child like that and watching these videos. It just breaks my heart. And it breaks my heart for them, too, that's what she feels she needs to do to protect herself and her other children.
And those are y'all's cameras. You put them in, we didn't. And you selected the things that you sent us as kind of indicative of when it just gets to the point where it's like, I'm out of options. I don't know what to do. What are you feeling in that moment?
It's protective mode. And then he would go after me, or he would go after his brother, and I don't have a choice. I am home by myself with 3 kids, and I have to protect them. And sometimes I have no choice but to do what I need to do. So it's all quick and awful to see these things, but let me tell you, it's awful to have to do those things. I don't know what else to do. I want someone to tell me what to do because I don't know what else to do. I want to protect all my babies, not just hurt him.
They have talked a lot about the other children in the home, and there's a little girl, yes. And he's big enough to do some real damage to her. Let's take a look at this clip that the cameras picked up. You'll see what I'm talking about. Now, that's scary to watch. I mean, that's not something that you want to see happen. Was she injured, by the way?
She was not, because the other bed had a rail. Right. And so she didn't fall off the bed. Mm-hmm. I was in the bathroom, and she ran down the hall. And by the time I got to her, that had happened, and I didn't know about it. And the boys told me about it, and I said, no way. Mm-hmm. And my sister said, go look at the drop cam. And when I looked at the drop cam, I found that video. And that night, we took their beds and separated them in rooms and put each of them on a mattress so that there was no opportunity for that to happen again.
He's not this way 24/7. Here's a video of Steve playing nicely and having fun with his baby sister at the pool and on the swings.
Go get it out. I can race you.
And that's what you want, right? I mean,
that's what I want. That's all
obviously.
I want.
This child has been through 9 doctors in the past 6 years. I mean, is there help for him? We are going to talk to one of the preeminent experts in the world on this particular issue right after the break. Joining us now is Dr. Alan Kasdan. He is a world-renowned child clinical psychologist at Yale University and director of the Yale Parenting Center. Now, the Yale Parenting Center is one of the world's leading care and parenting research institutions. They provide the most recent evidence-based techniques, including the Kasdan method, to help parents change even the most difficult of behavior problems. And Dr. Kasdan, thank you for being here so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Dr. Kasdan has been a friend for a long time. We've worked together on a number of cases. He served on our advisory board. He runs this program at Yale that is such a cutting-edge program. What do you see when you look at this, Doctor?
The normal thing would be to try to understand why. And so there, your discipline, is it genetic, is it mental illness, which illness? And in agreement with Dr. Phil, I would encourage you to get out of that completely. It's not going to help. That's just not how it works in most of psychiatry. And so the switches to the Dr. Phil's purpose here, what can we do? And I think there's a lot.
Let's talk about the two steps that we've discussed.
So I think there are two really viable options that really deserve attention. So the first one's called behavior analysis. And there are people around the country who are specially trained in this, and it's important you have someone specially trained in this. And what it amounts to, it's a treatment that's being used heavily for autism, and that's not why I'm suggesting it at all. Okay, we're avoiding the diagnostic issues here. And here's what the overall goal is, and here's how they get there. The overall goal is to try to get control of different amounts of the child's behavior and your day. So it's not going to be a nice magic wand on day one, and you recognize it now. What it's going to be is that, in fact, we can get rid of those tantrums in the morning. What about the afternoons? What about on the weekend? No, 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 no. We can get rid of those too. But first, we've got to do this way. And so we're going to do some things with applied behavior analysis that you'd never otherwise do. And I'll give an example. May I go to the second one?
Please.
The second one is parent management training. It'll amount to things like how you say things to the child, when you give the child choice. And it'll have you not do certain things. So, for example, when you're angry and mad at your child, if you get physically in contact, if I hug you and grab you, that's likely to lead you to get hit.
Let me give you the country bumpkin version of what our Yale boy is talking about over here. It's kind of like, how do you eat an elephant? You know, well, you just grab an ear and start chewing. You know, you can't fix everything at once. There's no miracle drug. There's no miracle pill. There's no miracle injection. You target a behavior and you get that one under control. And it may be triggered by time of day. It may be triggered by food. It may be triggered by any number of things. We don't know. But you will find that, and then you break down that behavior and your response to it, and you work on that. And you go, wow, we've eliminated that as a crisis point during the day. Now we move on to the next thing, and we move on to the next thing. But what Dr. Kasdan is saying is this is a very specialized, stepwise process for which people are vertically trained. I'm not trained in that. But there are people around the country that are, and that's what's going to happen here. That's the first thing you would do, correct?
May I give an example to show you how strange it will appear to you? There are many procedures, and one of them that'll look like it's the most odd would be something that we would call, in my place, a tantrum game. Take Steve at his best time. It looks like everything's calm and everyone's fine. And now start a game in which you actually practice a good tantrum. You explain to him you make a game out of it. We've done this 100 times, so this is not something that's rocket science, but it's not familiar. And you practice this game. You provide some praise, some rewards. It has to be done in a very special way. You can't just say, good. It's not going to work. It's got to be done in a very special way. And then you practice it. Why do you practice it? Because the changes that we would want to make in your child are very much like the changes you would make if you were learning how to play piano. We're going to work on scales. We're going to work on chords. Each time you practice, you change the brain. And so we're working, practice, repeated trials. And that's how we get the good tantrum. And then you stretch it out over time, and then you move on to something else. It's exactly like Phil said, one ear at a time.
And see, and that's counterintuitive because your thought would be, oh, he's quiet, let sleeping dogs lie. Last thing I want to do is go play tantrum game with him. What I want to do is take a deep breath and lean against the wall. And that's why this has to have a lot of help to take you through this. Is what we're talking about making sense?
Actually, it is, but we'll do anything.
The fact is, whether you like this truth or not, there are other children in this scenario to whom you have an undivided obligation. You must protect these other children. You must protect not only their life, but their peace. Now, we've got to take a break. Up next, I would like to talk to 9-year-old Steve myself, with Cheryl and Alan's permission, of course. I'd like to go back and just chat him up and kind of get a feel for him so I know a little bit about him with y'all's permission.
Yep.
All right, I'll do that after the break. Since the age of 3, Cheryl and Alan's 9-year-old son, Steve, has been diagnosed with 18 mental illnesses. He is currently taking 5 medications a day, and this year he has been committed to 3 different psychiatric hospitals. I'm going to go in and talk to him now and see what he has to say. Hey, buddy.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good.
I'm Dr. Phil. You ever seen me before? Well, that's okay. You have a brother and a sister? Yeah? How do you guys all get along?
Me and my brother don't get along, but me and my sister do.
Yeah? How come you get along with her?
Because she's new.
She's new? Okay. So, what's your brother? He's 7? He's 2 years younger than you?
Yeah.
Yeah? Do you guys fuss and fight? Yeah? How do you get along with your dad?
Sometimes I get along with him, and sometimes I don't really.
Yeah. How about your mom?
My mom I get along with fine.
You get along with her okay? So, do you like her? What do you like about her?
She's my mom.
She's your mom? Well, you have to like your mom, right? Do you know what concentrate means? What's it mean?
It means stay focusing.
Can you do that?
Yeah,
Sometimes?
sometimes.
Yeah. Will you try something for me?
Yeah.
Okay. Put your hands in front of you like this. Just like that. Okay. Now, I want you to pick an imaginary point between your 2 hands. Just a point in space. There's nothing really there. Just pick a point in space and look at it. Okay? Have you got it? Okay. Now, as you look at that, I want you to think of it as being like a magnet. And I want you to imagine that it's a powerful magnet and it's pulling your hands closer together. Closer together. Just you feel it. You feel it. Okay. All right. Now you can put your hands down. So what did you feel when you thought about that?
Weird.
Yeah? But did you feel your hands pulling? Okay, very good. Very good. 2 questions. What makes you angry?
When people try to hurt me or people say mean things.
Try to hurt you or say mean things? Okay, and the last question, what do you do when you're angry?
My room I damage when I'm angry so that I'm not. At least it's my room, because damaging something else in the other place in the house wouldn't be a good idea.
Yeah. Do you get so angry sometimes that you wish you could stop, but you can't? Yeah. What do you think about it afterwards? I mean, are you sorry about it, or how do you feel?
Usually sorry about it.
Do you ever say you're sorry?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's it feel like to feel sorry?
Sorry.
Do you feel a little sad for a minute, or do you feel
Sad.
upset, or what?
Sad.
Sad? Okay. All right. Well, that's good. That's all I wanted to ask you. Well, I just came back from talking to 9-year-old Steve backstage. What a delightful young man. His parents, Alan and Cheryl, have been struggling with his behavior because he's not always delightful. If he was like that all the time, we would be good, right?
We wouldn't be on your show.
Yeah, so just take me home with you and everything's fixed, right?
Come on in.
Dr. Kasdan, what did you think about this young man, just in the little brief interview we
Well,
had?
that was really an informative interview, and it goes back to your first point that he's not the way we're seeing 24/7. To have even those few moments even increases the hope that I began with, actually, because in that interview he was calm, he had good demeanor, he was respectful, he was very articulate, he did this game and this exercise. I think there's a lot of room for seeing the changes that you're, and all cleared by the interview, clarified by the interview.
Yeah, I've felt the same way. He's obviously very intelligent.
No question.
And articulate. The reason I did what I did with him here is I wanted to see, one, could he follow instructions? Two, could he concentrate? And three, what was his level of suggestibility? Because I suggested the strong magnet pulling his hands together, and they came together. He didn't do that on purpose. That's called clapping. They came together as I talked about it, and it didn't take very much for it to happen either. And that to me is very encouraging. This child is open. He could have been defiant and resistant. Oftentimes you'll see nobody's going to tell me what to think. Nobody's going to tell me what to. I didn't see oppositional behavior at all. He was compliant. He was focused. I saw it as a very big positive. So I think that there is something to work with here. Is there anything that you two want to ask me or Dr. Kasdan at all, or any comment you feel like you need to make before we move on to what I think needs to happen?
You've both studied the case. We sent you documents, we sent you videotape, you've spoken to our therapist on the telephone, so you guys are educated now on our case. Is there something that does need to be fixed with our son?
Oh, absolutely, unequivocally. He has behavioral problems. He is behaving in a counterproductive way that create distress for the family. They interfere with his social functioning. But at this point, it's not a diagnostic question for me. I just look at his behavior. Is it working? No. So does he have a problem? Yes. What is it? His behavior isn't working. We need to change his behavior. And you two can be powerful change agents. And as Dr. Kasdan pointed out a few minutes ago, the fact that you can be an agent for change doesn't mean that you were an agent for origin. It doesn't mean you caused it. It doesn't mean that he is who he is because of things that you have done that you shouldn't have done or not done that you should have done. That just because you can be the thing that changes it doesn't mean you're the thing that caused it. Having said that, your parenting, in my opinion, needs huge improvement, and through the process we're talking about will improve. And that's what I think needs to happen here. And we're going to help him find the right people. We're going to help you find the right people. Okay, last piece of advice that I want to give you. I would shut this blog down.
I have no problem shutting it down.
Okay, I think that's good. All right. Coming up, a woman who says she's afraid to leave her home and will spend hours in one specific room. When we come back, you're going to find out why. Here's a look at what's coming up tomorrow on The Doctors.
Gum disease so advanced.
Her body was rapidly wasting away.
Now,
we gave Lori the makeover of a lifetime.
Then, kids are being penalized for forgetting their homework. All new.
That's tomorrow on The Doctors. Imagine not being able to leave the house because your illness keeps you locked in the bathroom. Now, my next guest, Diane, says she's been dealing with this drama for the past 10 years, and it has taken a toll on her physically, emotionally, and financially. She says it's frustrating that people don't understand the gravity of her disease. Take a look.
In June of 2004, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. Everything you eat or drink irritates the lining of the intestine. I get fevers, chills, aches, pains. It's like a combo of the flu with a stomach virus. There's some days where I may only need to go to the bathroom a couple of times, and there's some days where it may be 10, 12, 20 times. When I have a flare-up, I'm living in that bathroom, and I'm there for hours. Ulcerative colitis has affected me emotionally, financially, and physically. It makes me sad because there's times where I can't participate in my children's events, my boys' baseball games, or family events. I have medical bills. We have doctor's visits, co-pays for medicines, co-pays for testing that has to be done. I can't work full-time. There's days where I just can't really fully function. I'm confined to the house or I'm in bed. People don't understand that it's a chronic disease. They think you've had a good day or a good week and then you're all better, and you're not. There really is no worse thing if you're sick. It's such a huge thing. It affects every aspect of your life.
Well, we talk about everything here. Diane is here in the audience. Also joining us is our good friend, Dr. Frida Lewis Hall, Chief Medical Officer of Pfizer. So welcome. Glad to have you here. So tell us a little bit about what Diane is suffering from.
Diane's been diagnosed with an illness that falls into the category of inflammatory bowel disease, or IBD. It's called ulcerative colitis. Now, ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease, the other form of IBD, together affect about 1.5 million people here in the United States. So Diane did a great job of describing some of the symptoms. But let's go back over them because I think it's important for people to know. The first is this chronic abdominal pain, so stomach pain. In addition to that, diarrhea, and that can be frequent, so frequent that people end up losing weight, getting dehydration, or even malnutrition. Right. In addition to that, sometimes they soil themselves, occasionally have blood in their stools, and fatigue, and that's just a few of the many symptoms that people suffer from. Diane also did a really good job of talking about how this can affect your life. So sufferers often have embarrassing situations that they have to deal with. Their daily lives are disrupted. And that can lead to social isolation and also can lower people's self-esteem.
Yeah.
And
when your body image goes down, your self-image goes with it sometimes.
That's exactly right. And then that makes it even harder to deal with the situation. And then on top of all of that, there are all of these medical interventions that may be required. And so a good question is, with all of this going on, is for Diane, which is, of all of these things, what's the thing that really bothers you the most or is hardest for you to deal with?
Life is like a roller coaster because you might have one good day and the next day you might be in and out of the bathroom all day. So people see you when you're having a good day and think you're fine, but don't understand those bad days. And probably the hardest thing is the toll it takes on my children. About a month ago, my son actually asked me if I was going to die because I was having a bad day. So, you know, how do you tell a 13-year-old really what is going on?
The first thing you want to do is recognize that the worst situation a child can be in is when they feel totally out of control and they don't know what's going on. They have a lack of information and they perceive a lack of control. Then they feel helpless. It's like, oh my gosh, you know, could my mother die here? Is there something that I should be doing that I'm not doing? And you want to allay those fears. You want to say, look, this is a problem here. And here's how it makes me feel. So sometimes, you know, I look okay on the outside, I'm kind of churning on the inside, but this is not something you need to worry about. You're not going to open the door and find me dead in my bed. You're not, because really that's where their heads will go. So allay their fears and let them know that you're working on this and that it can be a process and that it takes time.
You talk about how hard it is for young people to know and process this information. Interestingly about this disease, a lot of times because of its embarrassing nature, people don't want to talk about it. Right. So they try to self-diagnose. Well, let me just go and see what's going on. Maybe I can manage it and not have to talk about it to anybody. The other thing that happens is there's a lot of misinformation in this area. There's a lot of confusion between two disorders. So the first is the one that Diane has, which is IBD, inflammatory bowel disease. The other is IBS, so you can see where the confusion comes in, but that's irritable bowel syndrome. They are completely different illnesses that have different treatments and different needs. So it's really important to see your doctor to get a proper diagnosis.
And do you know exactly what you have?
I do.
Okay, so
I've been diagnosed with ulcerative colitis.
Right, you've got it figured out exactly.
Yes, and Diane's been not just a good seeker of information for herself, but also a guide to other people. So she's one of those at the forefront of talking about it where others don't, and seeking good information. So the reason that IBD is such an important illness to get under control, by the way, is not just the kind of suffering from day to day, but this serious illness puts you at risk for serious complications, one of which, for example, is the increased risk for colorectal cancer. So it's important to see a doctor, get a diagnosis, but to also go for routine follow-ups, because it's important to follow over time. And a lot of people with IBD are asking the question, so what's going on? Are there advances in treatment? Are there clinical trials that are ongoing? And the answer to that is yes. This is an area where we're learning more and researching. So again, information is important. So I'd like to invite people to visit, and Diane and I have talked about this as well, gethealthystayhealthy.com. We have information about IBD and also about available clinical trials.
Yeah, and listen, everybody knows I'm a huge fan of gethealthystayhealthy.com, and spend some time there, and particularly in this area, because what I fear is that people will self-diagnose, and then they either don't do things they need to do, or they do things like continuing certain diet regimens that are really a problem. So all of that's spelled out on gethealthystayhealthy.com. Yes. So, you know, go there, and thank you for sharing, because I know everybody didn't like to talk about this, but you did a great job of doing it. All right, I want to thank all of my guests today, especially Dr. Frida Lewis Hall and Dr. Alan Kasdan, director of Yale Parenting Center, for his help. Dr. Kasdan is also the author of several books, including the Kasdan Method for Parenting the Defiant Child. Check drphil.com, and you'll see a big link there for gethealthystayhealthy.com, and also for the Yale Parenting Center. Thank you so much.